You've probably experienced this. You know something's about to happen before it happens. Not psychic powers, not magic, something else entirely. And it freaks people out when your predictions keep coming true. There's a real explanation for this, and it has nothing to do with supernatural abilities. Sigma males consistently predict outcomes that surprise everyone else. They see problems coming before they manifest. They sense when relationships are failing before anyone says anything. They anticipate market changes, social shifts, and personal disasters with uncanny accuracy. People call it intuition, gut feeling, or even a sixth sense. But what's actually happening is much more interesting than any of those explanations. It's a specific cognitive process that Sigma males develop naturally through their way of engaging with the world. Today I'm breaking down exactly why Sigma males see things before they happen, how this ability develops, and why it looks like prediction when it's actually something different. I've got something exclusive for you. Sigma's Black Book of Untouchable Power. This isn't feel-good motivation. It's the kind of insider mindset and strategy that builds men other people don't challenge, don't question, and don't underestimate. This guide won't stay up forever. Certain people would rather you never read it. Get your copy in the description or the pinned comment while it's still available. Let's get into this. Reason 1. They observe without emotional investment. The foundation of predictive ability is observation without emotional distortion. And this is where Sigma males have a massive advantage. Most people observe the world through an emotional filter. They see what they want to see, ignore what makes them uncomfortable, and interpret everything through their hopes and fears. This emotional investment creates blind spots. Huge ones. Someone in a failing relationship won't see the warning signs because they're emotionally invested in the relationship working. Someone in a declining company won't see the collapse coming because they need to believe their job is secure. Someone following a trend won't see it ending because they're emotionally committed to being right about their investment. Sigma males observe differently. They're watching situations without needing them to turn out a certain way. They're not emotionally invested in specific outcomes, so they can see patterns clearly without the distortion that emotional investment creates. This isn't coldness, it's clarity. When you don't need things to be a certain way, you can see them as they actually are. A Sigma male watching a friend's relationship can see it's failing 6 months before it ends. Not because he's psychic, but because he's noticing all the small signs that the people in the relationship are missing because they are too emotionally involved to see clearly. He notices the decline in physical affection, the increase in criticism, the separate social lives developing, the way they talk about future plans without including each other. Each sign individually means nothing, but together they form a clear pattern. Most people miss these patterns because they're watching through emotional filters. They see what they hope to see or what they fear to see, not what's actually there. The Sigma sees what's actually there because he's not hoping or fearing. He's just watching. This observational clarity looks like prediction, but it's actually just pattern recognition without emotional interference. Reason 2. They track patterns over time instead of reacting to events. Here's what most people do. They react to events as they happen. Something occurs, they respond. Another thing happens, they respond again. They're living event to event without seeing the connections between events. Sigma males track patterns over time. They're not just seeing individual events. They're seeing how events connect, how patterns develop, where trajectories lead. This creates a completely different understanding of causality. Most people see events as discrete happenings. The Sigma sees them as data points in ongoing patterns. Think about it like this. Someone has a bad day at work. Most people treat it as an isolated incident. The Sigma notices it's the third bad day this month. The pattern matches what happened before the last layoffs, and the timing aligns with the company's quarterly reporting cycle. He connects data points that others see as unrelated. This temporal pattern tracking enables prediction because patterns repeat. If you recognize a pattern early enough in its development, you can predict where it's heading before it fully manifests. The Sigma male who predicted the 2008 housing crash wasn't psychic. He was tracking patterns: rising home prices disconnected from actual value, increasing subprime lending, growing debt ratios, historical precedent for how these patterns typically resolve. The pattern was clear to anyone tracking it, without emotional investment in the outcome. Most people didn't see it coming because they were reacting to individual events and emotionally invested in home prices continuing to rise. They weren't tracking patterns. They were experiencing a sequence of pleasant surprises. The Sigma was tracking the pattern and recognized it matched patterns that historically ended badly, not a prediction, just pattern recognition applied over time. Reason 3. They process multiple variables simultaneously. Most people think linearly. A causes B, B causes C, simple cause and effect chains. Sigma males think systemically. They're tracking multiple variables simultaneously and seeing how they interact with each other. This is why their predictions seem impossibly complex. They're not predicting based on one factor. They're synthesizing multiple factors and seeing where the combined trajectories lead. Take a simple example. Will this person succeed in their new business? Most people answer based on one or two variables. Does the person work hard? Is the business idea good? Simple analysis. The Sigma is processing 20 variables simultaneously. Market timing, capital availability, owner's actual skills versus claimed skills, lifestyle needs versus likely income trajectory, partner support or resistance, psychological resilience under stress, business model dependencies, competitive landscape changes, regulatory environment, technology trends, and a dozen other factors. He's not consciously analyzing all 20 variables. His brain is processing them automatically because he's trained it to track complex systems. And when he synthesizes all these variables, he reaches a conclusion that looks like prediction, but is actually systematic analysis. This is why Sigma males can look at a situation for a few minutes and make accurate assessments that take others months to reach. They're not thinking faster. They're thinking more dimensionally. They're processing the entire system simultaneously rather than examining variables sequentially. And when you process systems rather than variables, you see emergent properties that aren't visible through linear analysis. You see where the system is heading, not just where the individual variables are pointing. Reason 4. They listen to behavioral signals, not verbal statements. People lie. Not always maliciously, but they lie. They lie to others. They lie to themselves. They present idealized versions of reality rather than actual reality. Most people take verbal statements at face value. Someone says they're fine, you believe them. Someone says they're committed to the project, you assume they are. Someone says they love their job, you think they do. Sigma males ignore verbal statements and watch behavioral signals. They're tracking what people actually do, not what they say they're doing or planning to do. This creates massive predictive advantage because behavior reveals truth that words hide. A manager says the company is doing great and everyone's jobs are secure. Most employees believe this because they want to believe it. The Sigma notices the manager started updating his LinkedIn profile, has had 3 mysterious meetings with people from other companies, and stopped approving long-term projects. Behavior signals one thing while words signal another. The words are lies. The behavior is truth. And tracking behavior lets you see what's coming before the verbal acknowledgement catches up to reality. This works in every context. Relationships, business, social dynamics, political situations. People's behavior tells you what they're actually thinking and planning long before their words do. The Sigma male who predicts his friend's divorce isn't guessing. He's watching behavioral signals. The friend says everything is fine, but he's working longer hours, not mentioning his wife in conversations, making major purchases without consulting her, spending more time with single friends. The behavior pattern clearly indicates relationship failure, even while the words claim everything is fine. Most people listen to the words because the words are comfortable. The Sigma watches the behavior because behavior doesn't lie. Reason 5. They understand incentive structures. This is the secret that unlocks most prediction. If you understand what incentivizes someone's behavior, you can predict their behavior with remarkable accuracy. Sigma males instinctively analyze incentive structures. They're always asking, what is this person actually optimizing for? What do they gain from each possible action? What are their real constraints? This sounds cynical, but it's just realistic. People respond to incentives. Not always consciously, but they do. And if you understand someone's incentives, you can predict their choices. A company says they value work-life balance, but they promote people who work 80-hour weeks and quietly push out people who maintain boundaries. The incentive structure reveals what they actually value, regardless of what they claim to value. The Sigma sees this and predicts that any policy changes around work-life balance will be performative rather than substantive. Because the incentive structure hasn't changed. People are still incentivized to overwork, so they will continue overworking regardless of policy statements. This applies everywhere. Politics, relationships, business, social dynamics. People respond to incentives, often unconsciously. Map the incentives, and you can predict the behaviors with high accuracy. The Sigma male who predicts his coworker will betray the team isn't being paranoid. He's analyzing incentives. The coworker is incentivized to advance individually, not to maintain team cohesion. When those incentives conflict, which they will, the individual incentive will win. Predictable. Most people take stated intentions at face value. The Sigma analyzes actual incentives and predicts based on those. That's why his predictions come true, while others are surprised. Reason 6. They recognize unsustainable patterns. Certain patterns can't continue indefinitely. They're inherently unstable and will eventually resolve, usually badly. Recognizing these unsustainable patterns enables prediction that seems impossible to people not tracking sustainability. Sigma males develop an intuitive sense for unsustainability. Something might be working now, but the conditions that make it work can't persist. When those conditions change, the pattern collapses. This is how some Sigma males predicted cryptocurrency crashes, housing bubbles, relationship failures, career disasters, and social movement collapses. They recognized patterns that depended on conditions that couldn't last. Take a simple example. Someone is maintaining a lifestyle that requires them to earn significantly more than they currently earn. They're assuming future income growth that would be exceptional by any historical standard. The lifestyle is unsustainable unless those exceptional circumstances materialize. Most people look at the current moment and think, it's working now, so it's fine. The Sigma sees the unsustainability and predicts the eventual adjustment. Not the timing necessarily, but the inevitability. Same with social dynamics. A friend group where one person is constantly taking and everyone else is constantly giving. That's unsustainable. The givers will eventually burn out, or the taker will push too far. The exact trigger doesn't matter. The pattern will resolve because it can't continue indefinitely. Recognizing unsustainability is like watching someone juggle an increasing number of balls. You don't know exactly when they'll drop them, but you know they will drop them because humans can't juggle 20 balls indefinitely. The Sigma sees unsustainable juggling in economic systems, relationships, business models, career trajectories, and social structures. He doesn't know the exact moment of collapse, but he knows collapse is inevitable because the pattern is unsustainable. Reason 7. They've internalized historical patterns. This is often overlooked, but it's crucial. Sigma males tend to be students of history, psychology, and human nature. Not necessarily formally, but through reading, observation, and reflection. This historical knowledge creates a database of patterns. And when they see similar patterns emerging in present circumstances, they recognize them. This isn't history repeats itself thinking. It's pattern recognition across time. The specific circumstances are always different, but underlying patterns recur with remarkable consistency. The Sigma who predicts political trends isn't reading tea leaves. He's recognizing patterns he's seen in historical political movements. The specific parties and issues change, but the patterns of how movements rise, consolidate power, and eventually either succeed or collapse follow recognizable trajectories. Same with economic cycles, relationship dynamics, technological adoption curves, social changes. The specific details are always unique, but the underlying patterns repeat because human psychology and social dynamics have consistent elements. Most people don't study patterns across time, so they experience every situation as novel and unpredictable. The Sigma has internalized enough historical patterns that he recognizes echoes in current circumstances. This isn't about being better read, though that helps. It's about having invested time in understanding how humans and systems behave under various conditions. That investment creates a pattern database that enables recognition when similar circumstances arise. Here's the important part. What looks like prediction is actually present moment recognition of patterns that have future implications. The Sigma isn't seeing the future. He's seeing the present more clearly and completely than most people. He's recognizing patterns that have predictable trajectories and logical outcomes. It's like watching dominoes already falling. You're not predicting they'll fall. You're seeing that they're already falling and recognizing where the cascade will lead. Most people only see the dominoes that have already completely fallen. The Sigma sees the ones that are currently tipping, recognizes the pattern of how they're arranged, and understands where the cascade is heading. Same information, different processing. Same present moment, different recognition of implications. This is why Sigma predictions often sound crazy until they come true. The patterns are already there in present circumstances, but most people aren't trained to see them. So when the Sigma describes what he's seeing, it sounds like wild speculation about the future rather than accurate observation of the present. The good news is that this isn't magic or genetic. It's a trainable skill set. Start with observational practice. Watch situations without emotional investment. Try to see what's actually happening rather than what you hope or fear is happening. This is harder than it sounds because emotional investment is automatic. Practice pattern recognition over time. Instead of treating events as discrete happenings, look for connections and recurring patterns. Keep a journal, tracking how situations develop and resolve. Over months and years, you'll build pattern recognition capability. Study systems thinking. Learn to see how multiple variables interact rather than thinking in simple cause-effect chains. This takes practice, but dramatically improves predictive ability. Watch behavior more than words. Train yourself to notice what people actually do rather than what they say. The gap between words and actions is where truth lives. Analyze incentive structures explicitly. For any situation, write out what each actor is actually incentivized to do. Then predict based on incentives rather than stated intentions. Study history, psychology, and human nature. Build your pattern database so you can recognize when current circumstances match historical patterns. None of this is quick. Developing genuine predictive ability through pattern recognition takes years, but it's accessible to anyone willing to do the observational and analytical work. This ability isn't purely beneficial. There are real costs to seeing things before they happen. You'll watch disasters unfold that you can't prevent. You'll warn people who won't listen and then watch them experience exactly what you predicted. You'll know relationships are failing before the people in them know, and you can't fix it for them. You'll be labeled pessimistic, negative, or paranoid for seeing problems that others don't see yet. When you're proven right, people often resent you for it, rather than appreciating the warning. You'll experience a strange loneliness. Seeing patterns others don't see means you're often the only one who understands what's actually happening in any given situation. That's isolating. You'll deal with the burden of knowing things you wish you didn't know. Ignorance is genuinely bliss sometimes. Seeing clearly means you can't unsee what's coming. Most Sigma males would tell you the ability is worth these costs, but the costs are real and shouldn't be dismissed. The Sigma male's apparent sixth sense isn't supernatural. It's systematic observation without emotional distortion, pattern recognition over time, systems thinking, behavioral analysis, incentive structure mapping, sustainability assessment, and historical pattern recognition. These are trainable skills, not mystical abilities, but developing them takes time, practice, and the willingness to see clearly even when clear sight is uncomfortable. The payoff is significant. You'll navigate life with better information than most people have. You'll avoid disasters others walk into blindly. You'll make better decisions because you'll see implications others miss. But you'll also be frequently frustrated by people who can't or won't see what's clearly visible to you. That's the trade-off. Whether it's worth it is up to you. If you've experienced this predictive ability and had people think you're crazy until your predictions came true, drop a comment with the word patterns and share your most accurate prediction. And if you want to develop this ability yourself, hit that subscribe button. I break down practical observation and analysis techniques every week. Until next time, trust what you see, even when others don't see it yet.